stops. All right, Shavuos, good morning. Let's begin. A beautiful, beautiful daf ahead of us today. Today's daf is Mem Aleph 41. We are picking up Mem Amud Beis 40 at the two dots. It's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 lines up from the bottom. Really beautiful Gemara today. So first of all, the fine. So also remember again, we were discussing this case in the Mishnah. This is the case of Kofer Bakol. Up until now, we've been dealing with the Shevuos Modeh B'Miktzas. I go ahead and I claim, Reuven, you owe me $1,000. Reuven says, I only owe you $500. So that triggers the oath of partial admission, Shevuos Modeh B'Miktzas. Now we're transitioning to the next case. Reuven, you owe me $1,000, and Reuven says, I owe you nothing. I owe you nothing. We'll say, how does the Mishnah paskin? If Reuven denies the claim in its entirety, then ultimately, again, he is potter. Says the Gemara, Rav Nachman, umashpiin also Shevuos Hasis. Rav Nachman says, okay, it is true that he is potter, meaning he's potter midaraisa from a Shevuah, but we will administer also what's called a Shevuos Hasis. A Shevuos Hasis, and again, we'll get into this a bit more, but on a very simple level, Shevuos Hasis is a Shevuah d'Rabbanan. A rabbinic Shevuah. Take a look at Rashi just a moment. Hesis, Loshon Shuma. Sheshamu Chachamim alav Shevuah. Excuse me. Shesamu alav Chacham Shevuah Kimo Ki Hashem Esis Chabi. So we'll say ultimately again, Hesis is a Loshon ultimately again of Shuma, evaluation, and sum, to place. So they place literally an evaluative Shevuah upon an Avosai. So we impose rabbinic Shevuah. In other words, what the Rabbanan do is as follows. Even though on a technical level, which we'll discuss, when you're Kofer Bakol, when you deny the claim in its entirety, so this is interesting, there is some validity and there is some credence ultimately to the denial, but yet, again, the Rabbanan will still say I have to take a Shevuah. Says the Gemara, my timer, they will say, what's the logic behind this? Chazaka in Adam Toveh Ela Im Kein Yeshon. I will say what the Gemara is asking over here is why would we impose a rabbinic Shevuah? If somebody is potter from a Shevuah, so ultimately again why would we impose a rabbinic one? To which the Gemara answers, because you have a chazaka that I would not be claiming something Ela Im Kein Yeshon. I will say, where there's smoke, there's fire. The general chazaka is normal people do not claim things that are not theirs. Therefore, again, if Lamaisa I am claiming that Reuven owes me $1,000, that must mean that what? There must be something to it. There must be something to it. Therefore, the way to resolve whether or not there's validity to my claim is how? Is to go ahead and administer a rabbinic oath. Adrabah, the Gemara says just the opposite. So we'll say, remember again, let's take a step back. Why is it that the Mishnah paskins? Why is it that if this is an interesting case? Reuven, you owe me $1,000. Reuven says, I owe you nothing. I owe you nothing. So we'll say, what's the halacha? He's potter. What's the logic of what they say that he's potter? The logic is ein adamei panav b'fnei ba'al chovo. We'll say the logic is that a person cannot give a bold-faced lie in the face of his creditor. Right? That just normal people don't do that. In other words, I could go ahead and engage in half-truths. So if I owe you $1,000, then what? I could justify saying, listen, I'm going to admit to $500 now, and I'll pay the remaining $500 at a later date. But to tell you that I owe you nothing, to look you in the face, my creditor, who did the tova of lending me money, and to say, I owe you nothing at all, that far I can't go. So it says the Gemara, Adrabah, Chazaka in Adamei Panav B'fnei Ba'al Chovo. So in general we have a principle that what? That a person would not go ahead and be so brazen to deny the debt in its entirety in the face of his creditor. Ishtamuti hu kam shtamit. And therefore we'll say, what does it do? What does a person do? A person buys himself a little bit of time. Savar ad kidahavali uparanale. And a person figures to themselves at the end of the day, so I'll buy myself a little bit of time. And what? And when I have the money, I'll repay you. So I'll say, so the idea over here is, that's why again we impose a rabbinic Shevuah. So the Gemara is suggesting over here that even though we say a person would never deny a debt in its entirety, we assume that the complete denial of Rabosai is not there to deny the debt. Rather, what does it do? What is it for? It's a stalling mechanism. So right now I'm going to tell you I don't have the money. Am I going to pay back? Am I going to pay it back?
Yeah.
Of course. Excellent, very good. Of course I'm going to pay it back, and of course I'm going to pay it back. But I need to buy myself a little bit of time. So what am I going to do? I'm going to say, I owe you, but I don't have it. So instead I'll just deny it. And then again, I'll go ahead and I'll pay him back later on. Therefore, Rabbi say, what happens already, the Rabbanon go ahead and the Rabbanon say, no, you have to take a Shevuah. So we have to take a Shevuah in order to go ahead, because Rabbi say, also, sometimes, as we all know, so when people justify things, so justifications, that's the wrong word, not justifications, but when a person is like, thank you, rationalizations have an incredible way of evolving. So what begins as, of course I owe you the money, I'll just pay you later on, could very easily evolve to what? I'm not paying you. I'm not paying you. So we'll say, so ultimately, again, in order to avoid that, so Chazal instituted a rabbinic shvuah. Teda, Dom Rav Idi bar Avin, Amar Rav Chisda, Hakofer b'milva kosher li'edus. Well, so that's why, again, Chazal said, Rav Chisda said, that if a person ultimately, again, denies a pikadon, a person denies a debt in its entirety, they are still kosher li'edus. Right? They're still fit to be given testimony. On the flip side, b'pikadon pasal li'edus. If a person goes ahead of us saying what? Denies a pikadon, ultimately, again, a person will be pasal le'edus. Take a look at Rashi just a moment. Kasher le'edus, Rashi says. Rashi said, Kasher le'edus, v'lo amrin chashed amamonahu, ela ishtamuti kamishtamet le, mishum demilva lo tzanit, no? Ve'achshav biyado b'ma lifro. So, listen to this. So, at the end of the day, if it turns out that I lied regarding a debt, so we'll say, I'm not pasal le'edus. Why am I not pasal le'edus? Because we assume that at the end of the day, was it my intention to pay the debt? Of course it was. So why am I lying? Just to buy myself some time. I don't have the money right now. I need to buy myself a little bit of time. So I'm just lying that I didn't borrow to give myself time to pay back. On the flip side of Bosai, if a person lies about a pikadon, so lying about a pikadon of Bosai is inexcusable. Why? Because since a person doesn't have a right to use the pikadon, if I deposit something with Ruvain, he doesn't, have the right to use it. Therefore, if he lies about the fact that he has it, that's already rishus and will be pasal le'edus. Rav Chaviva, Masni Asefa. Rav Chaviva went ahead and took Rav Nachman's statement about a Shevuos Hasis, and he went ahead and he said it applies to the second part. Manali biyadecha, the Seifa. Manali biyadecha, Amar Lohein. Well, so listen to this case. I say to Ruvain, you owe me money. So Ruvain says, you're right. L'macha, Amar Lo Teneuli. So the next day I come to Ruvain and say, Ruvain, it's time to pay me back. So what does he say to me? Nasativ l'cha. So he says to me, I paid you already. So what's the halacha? Pater. Well, say, look, at the end of the day, if he's claiming that he paid me back, and again, I have no testimony or any kind of documentation to the contrary, so Lamaisa again, he's Pater. On Rav Nachman, so we'll say again, in Rav Chaviva's model, this is where he applies Rav Nachman Shevuos Hasis. On Rav Nachman, Umashpin also Shevuos Hasis. And Rav Nachman says, ultimately, again, we impose a Shevuos Hasis upon him in this situation. Man de Masni Aresha, Kol Shekin HaSeifa. We'll say, so the one who applies Rav Nachman's statement to the first case that we quoted would certainly apply to the second case. Top of Memalaf Amud Aleph. Uman de Masni La Asifa. We will say the one who goes in and applies Rav Nachman's statement to the second case, which is the case where I say, Reuven, you owe me money. Reuven says, okay, I go to him the next day, pay up, and he says, I paid you already. So the man de Masni La Asifa, Hachu di Kadrar de Mamona. We'll say it's in the second case where again we could see why we would apply Shevuos Hasis. Why? Because Drod Damona Bosai literally means there's a loss of money. Loss of money because in case number 2, what's the difference of Bosai? Reuven admitted the debt. He admitted that he owes me money. It's just that now when I come to go ahead and collect payment, now what happens? Now he says, I paid you already. But Lamaisa, because he admitted it, therefore again, maybe that's where I have a Shevuos Hasis. Aval Hassam, but in case number 1, the Leka Drod Damona, Bosai Drod Damona literally means a loss of money. In case number 1, there's no quote-unquote loss of money. Why is there no loss of money? What the Gemara means is in case number 1, there was never even an admission of the debt. So maybe if there's no admission of the debt, then what? Then the Maisa, again, there's no Shevuos Hasis. But we'll say, bottom line, the way that Rambam Paskins is, we would impose a Shevuos Hasis in both of these cases. So whether a person is Kofer Bakol, even though, again, on a case for Kofer Bakol, there is no Shevuah D'Oraisa, but there will still be a Shevuah D'Rabbanan Shevuos Hasis. And also in the case, we'll say, where a person goes ahead and says, Reuven, you owe me money. Reuven says, yes. I come to him tomorrow, he says, I paid you already. We would also impose, a Shevuos Hasis in that case as well. We'll say third line down, Memalach Amud Aleph. We'll say, what is the difference between a biblical Shevuah and a rabbinic Shevuah? Ikaben Arabos is actually quite interesting. Here's a practical difference between them. Meifach Shevuah. And we'll say, can you flip a Shevuah? Now look at Rashi for just a moment. Meifach Shevuah. Second line from the top in Rashi. We'll say, listen to this. I go to Ruvain. I say, Ruvain, you owe me $1,000. So let's say, we'll say Ruvain. So let's say Ruvain goes in and says, you know what? You swear to that effect, and I will pay you. We'll say that's called hefach shvuah. It's called flipping the shvuah. So we'll say in the doraisa, with the shvuah doraisa, you can go ahead and flip the shvuah. However, I'm sorry. By doraisa, we do not flip the shvuah. In other words, we'll say mid doraisa, whoever is chayv in the shvuah has to take it, and that party does not have the right to flip the shvuah onto the other party. But dirabanan mafchinon, we'll say ultimately again in dirabanan you can flip the shvuah. Lemar baravashi daram b'doraisa and mafchinon shvuah ma'ika bein doraisa l'rabanan. We'll say according to Ramar baravashi who says then in doraisa you can also flip the shvuah. Then ultimately again, wherein lies the distinction between a shvuah doraisa and a shvuah d'rabanan? Ikabenaihu mechas l'nechasi. We'll say, listen to this. Does Beis Din go ahead and seize the property of the defendant? Look at Rashi. Mechas l'nechasi. Third line down in Rashi. Im amar eini nishba ve'eini mishalim yardin l'nechasa ve'nostin lazer. We'll say, listen to this. What happens if I say, Reuven, you owe me $1,000? And I will say, let's say it's a case where Reuven would have to take a shul, but Reuven says, I'm not swearing, and I'm not paying. So, like, what do you do in a situation like this? So, also, I said the simplest thing would be for Beis Din to go and to seize property. So it says the Gemara, when do we seize property? So, b'daraisa nachtil l'nechasei, b'drabana lo nachtil l'nechasei. We'll say if it's a shvuah daraisa, Beis Din will seize property. If it's a shvuah d'rabanan, Beis Din will not seize property. All the Rabbi Yossi da amar b'drabanan ami nachtil l'nechasei. And according to Rabbi Yossi, who says that even by d'rabanan, we go ahead and we seize property. So we'll say disnan. Where does Rabbi Yossi get this? We'll say it's actually really interesting. Mitzias chashu. We'll say listen to this. Acherish shota v'kata. Right. Remember again in halacha, these are all people who lack legal capacity. Cherish is a deaf mute. Shota is someone who is deranged, right, or insane, and a katan, right? Ultimately, again, a minor. So we'll say, what's the halacha? Let's say they find something. The cherish shota of a katan finds it and find a $100 bill on the ground. We'll say, what happens if I go ahead and I take that $100 bill from them? Okay, I'm not the nicest guy, but I'm $100 richer. Right? I go ahead and I take it from them. We'll say, what's the status of that act? So the Gemara says, Yesh bohem gezel mipnei darkei shalom. So also I say the Rabbanan rule that ultimately again it's theft mipnei darkei shalom, which Rabbi say is another way of saying that what midaraisa it's not theft. Why is it not theft? Rabbi say why? Because since these people lack capacity, they also have the inability to acquire. But midrabanan, what we call mishum darkei shalom, in order to preserve and to create a just society, we don't want people going around and taking anything that does not belong to them. Even if from a legal perspective it does not constitute an act of theft. Therefore, midrabanan, you cannot go ahead and take it from them. Rabbi Yossi Omer Gezel Gomer. Rabbi Yossi says ultimately that what? Rabbi Yossi says that it's Gezel Gomer. V'amar Rav Chisda Gezel Gomer midivreim. And Rabbi Yossi says that what it means is it's Gezel Gomer midivreim, meaning it's rabbinic theft. It's rabbinic theft. So we'll say Salamai Nafkamina. What does that mean? Lo tzio bedayonin. Ultimately, again, I will say that according to Rabbi Yossi, you would go ahead and what? That if, let's say, the guardian or the parent of the Chayir Shot of the Katan were to come to Beis Din and to claim against me, Beis Din would extract the $100 from me that I took from the Chayir Shot of the Katan. So what do you see from here? That according to Rabbi Yossi, even for the Rabbanans, Beis Din nachtin l'nechasei. Beis Din will go ahead and seize property. Therefore, also remember again, we're on a very simple measure. We're just trying to figure out what's the distinction between a shvuah d'oraisa and a shvuah d'rabbanan. The last suggestion floated was that what? The distinction is, does Beis Din seize property? So the Gemara is suggesting for a d'oraisa, yes. For a d'rabbanan, no. But according to Rabbi Yossi, who holds that even for a d'rabbanan, yes, we do seize property. Beis Din will go ahead and seize property. So what's the distinction between a shvuah d'oraisa and a shvuah d'rabbanan? Ikabenaihu shekenegdo chashir ala shvuah. Well, so listen to this. Where does this come up? This comes up, Rabbi say, the distinction comes up where ultimately, again, the party who has to take the shvuah is chashir ala shvuah. Rabbi say he is suspect for swearing falsely. Take a look at Rashi. It's the fourth line from the top on Rashi. Shekenegdo chashud. Rashi's hanitva, the person being claimed, the defendant, chashud ala shvuah. So we're going to see this case in just a few days. A very interesting case where what happens? I claim that Reuven owes me $1,000. So okay, let's say it's a case where Reuven has to take a shvuah. There's only one problem, which is what? Which is Reuven is chasher al shvuah. He has unfortunately a record of swearing falsely. So in general, again, we are reticent to administer an oath upon someone who we know is ready and willing to swear falsely. What do we do in a situation like that? We essentially flip the shvuah. So we say is, okay, you plaintiff, right? You plaintiff, you'll take the shvuah. So in this case, again, I'll take the shvuah and I'll collect my $1,000 like that. B'daraisa, so the Gemara says, I'm sorry. B'daraisa, sheknegdo chashad al shvuah, apchinalei shvuah v'samu a'idach. So I'll say ultimately again, when it comes to shvuah daraisa, so if I'm claiming against Reuven the money and Reuven's chashad al shvuah, the Beis Din will flip the shvuah back on me. I'll take the shvuah, I'll swear, and I'll collect my money. However, b'dirabanan takanti, it will say a rabbinic shvuah is already a takana. V'takanta l'takanta lo avdinan. And I will say we do not go ahead and make one enactment upon another enactment. In other words, I will say this already is too many steps. In other words, the concept of essentially mepach shvuah by chashd al shvuah, that we flip the shvuah when the defendant is suspect to swear falsely is a rabbinic enactment. This is dirabanan. But in general, again, we don't like to pile on dirabanans. So if somebody is taking a shvuah daraisa and the defendant is chashd al shvuah, we'll make the plaintiff swear. But lamaisa, if we're already dealing with a rabbinic shvuah, to then go ahead and flip a rabbinic shvuah, which is a rabbinic enactment on top of a rabbinic enactment, that we're not going to do. So the Gemara says, but according to the Rabbanan who argue on Rabbi Yossi, so let's listen to this. So according to the Rabbanan, ultimately who do argue on Rabbi Yossi, so we're going back in a second. So now, what we've essentially done is we've shown the distinctions between a rabbinic shvuah and a Rabbanan shvuah. Now the Gemara is going back to just revisit one of the points made. So let's listen to this. According to the Rabbanan who argue in Rabbi Yossi, remember, Rabbi Yossi holds that by a Shvuah D'Rabbanan, Rabbi Yossi holds that by a Shvuah D'Rabbanan, so the Beis Din will descend and seize property. According to the Rabbanan who hold that by a Shvuah D'Rabbanan, Beis Din will not seize property, Mayavdinale. So we'll say, how does Beis Din enforce a rabbinic shvuah? In other words, we'll say, so according to Rabbi Yossi, who says that if even for a rabbinic shvuah, Beis Din will go and will seize property, okay, I understand the enforcement of a rabbinic shvuah. According to the Rabbanan who hold that it's only by shvuah doraisa that Beis Din seizes property. So what is the mechanism for enforcement of a rabbinic shvuah? To which the Gemara says, Mishamtinalei, we excommunicate him. That if a person ultimately, again, either won't swear or again is swearing false, we will excommunicate them. That'll be the mechanism that will force a person to be honest. Amar Ravina Ravashi, Hai nakte bekovse the neshavke liglimehu. So let's say this interesting expression. The Gemara says this is like grabbing someone nakte bekovse, which also means grabbing him in his private parts in order to go ahead and get him to release the cloak. So we'll say the idea over here is what the Gemara is saying over here is, I don't think you're going to excommunicate him until he goes ahead and he yields. Okay, so that's essentially, we'll say, so that effectively, again, is placing him under constant duress until he gives in. Ela Mayav Dinale. So we'll say, so what do we do? Amrle Mishamtinale ad dimatu zman nagde v'nagdinale v'shavkinale. Rather, I will say, what do we do? First of all, take a look at Rashi. Rashi says, nakte lekovse de l'shavki leglime. So we'll say, literally, nakte means you grab hold. Kovsi, I will say, means a cluster, which is a reference, ultimately, again, to his private parts. De l'shavki leglimehu, until he goes ahead and he releases the cloak. So Rashi says, oches bebeitzav hatuluyim bo ad shiyitein lo talash shalav kilomar kevan de shamtina le olam ad deleisavle. Less lecha lemechas than lechase adach miyar. So we'll say, it doesn't make sense what you're saying. You're telling me that by a shvuah d'Rabbanan, you're going to go ahead and you're going to excommunicate the guy essentially until he does what you want. Well, isn't that effectively the same thing as seizing his property? In other words, what's the difference? To which the Gemara says, you're right. Rather, what does it mean? We excommunicate him. I will say, now we excommunicate him until it comes time to get malchus. I will say, now what does that mean? Take a look at Rashi. ad demati zman nagde lebasar tlasin yom kidarmina rav mangid aman demashi shante draban alei tlasin yom. Let's listen to this. The halacha is that if Beis Din excommunicates you, Beis Din expects you to remedy the situation that led to your excommunication. If you do not remedy your situation, but instead you allow yourself to remain in a state of excommunication, Beis Din flogs you. They give you malchus. So I was supposed to say, you're getting punished for getting punished. Really what you're doing is, you're getting punished for allowing yourself to remain in a state of punishment, as opposed to, it's an incredible yisod. To get myself into trouble, okay, that happens. That's forgivable. What's unforgivable is to get myself into trouble and to not do anything to get myself out. That's where there's liability. So I'm excommunicated. If you allow yourself to remain in a state of excommunication up till 30 days, then what happens? Beis Din flogs you. We'll say at that point in time, once Beis Din flogs me, v'shav kina. We'll say then that's the punishment. So the answer is, according to the Rabbanan who say that Beis Din will not seize property for a rabbinic oath, for the enforcement of a rabbinic oath. So essentially what happens is as follows. We excommunicate the individual, and again, if he allows himself to remain in that state of excommunication up till 30 days, we will go ahead and flog him. And once we flog him effectively, again, we're done. Case is closed. Papa. Hi man, the apik shtarachar. Listen to these are great cases. Hi man, the apik shtarachar. Va'amri shtara paruo. Listen to this. So, I produce a document. I say, Ruvain, document says you owe me $1,000. Ruvain says, yep, but I paid it. I paid it. I'm not contesting. You lent me money, and I paid it. Amrina le lav kol kaminach zil shlim. We say to Ruvain, okay, that's very nice, but you're not believed. In other words, remember, we'll say, generally, again, if I lent Ruvain $1,000 and he repaid the loan, who should really have possession of the document? Ruvain should have it, right? Because again, remember, that's the receipt. Somebody who paid back a debt would never let the lender hold on to the document because that allows the lender the power of collection. So here, I produced the document. Ruvain says, yes, I agree, I owe you money, but I paid you already. So we say, Ruvain, you're not believed. Zil shlim, go pay. Vim amar lishtabali. And if Ruvain says, well, let's Silber swear, that's what? That he lent me money. And if he swears to it, then I'll pay him. Amrina le ishtabale. So Beis Din will say to me, you swear and collect your money. We'll say, what's the difference in this case and pogim and shtaro? Now look at Rashi for just a moment. Lepogim shtaro, Rashi says, Disnan hapogemes ksuvasa lo tifra ela b'shvuah. Now we'll say, now listen to this. The case of pogemes ksuvasa, what is this case? Ketzad, haisik ksuvasa elav zuz. We'll say, let's say again, a man owes his wife a ksuva of 1,000 zuz. Vihu amar, his kabalt ksuva sech. So the man claims that he paid his wife for ksuva. Viomeres lo iskabalti ela mana. She claims, I only received a mana. I received just a partial payment. Hoil umodis b'mana pogemes eshtar ksuvasa. V'lo tifra eshtar ela b'shvuos. We'll say pogemes b'shtar essentially is a case of modeh b'miktsas. Since she admitted that she was paid part of it, she can collect the rest of it except with a shvuah. The leika lemismach su ashtara. The ikal lememar tvei kibla v'hashta darmat mashbiyan lo ma yafa kochom misheim pagam ashtros. So listen to this. So at the end of the day, what the Gemara is asking is as follows. I don't understand. In this case where I produced the document, and all Reuven is saying is that what? Is that he paid me already. Why should I have to take a shvuah in that case in order to go ahead and get payment? At the end of the day, I have the document. So in other words, why is this any better than a case, ultimately, again, where a person admitted partially that they received partial payment, to which the Gemara says, here's the difference that we'll say. In the case of Pogim Ashtaro, even though, again, he doesn't make the taina, we taina for him. However, ultimately, again, I will say it's in this case over here where we say to the defendant, go and pay. V'toin v'amrishtabeli amrina le'zilishtabeli. We'll say so. Again, the difference over there is that in the case ultimately again of pogem eshtaro, so we will taina on behalf of the husband. In this case over here, we will not taina on behalf of the defendant. It just happens that if the defendant says, "You lender swear and collect," that the Beis Din tells the lender to swear and he could collect. V'tzor mirabanu. I will say if the person involved over here is a Talmid Chacham, lo mashbi'in alei. We will not make the Talmid Chacham take a shvuah. So says the Gemara, Amalei Rav Yemer Rav Ashi. So what does that mean? The Talmid Chacham could take anyone's property and doesn't have to take a shvuah? Ella lo mizdakina le'ledina. Rather, Rabbi say what it means is as follows. Look at Rashi. Lo mizdakinale li shaba de mechsi techashtinale v'lo ligbos lo daha amar le ishtabali de lo praticha. So let's listen to this. What it means is let's say in this case the lender is a Talmud Chacham. Let's say, so under normal circumstances, the Gemara is suggesting, I go to Reuven, they say, Reuven, you owe me $1,000, I have a star. Reuven says, fine, if you swear that I owe it to you, I'll pay you. So Beis Din tells me under this circumstance, just swear. Swear, take the Shevuah, ultimately you get repaid. However, again, I will say, if the lender is a Talmud Chacham, Beis Din will not go ahead and make him take the Shevuah in order to collect payment. Says Gemara, what does that mean? So Talmud Chacham could just take payment without the Shevuah. What it means is no, that Beis Din essentially doesn't get involved. That Beis Din will say, listen, we're not going to force you to take an oath. We're not going to administer it because it's a lack of kavod. It seems to be that we don't trust you without an oath. On the flip side, we also can't allow you to collect without an oath either. So essentially what the Gemara says is that for the din of the Talmud Chacham, we can't impose an oath, but at the same time we can't get in payment without the oath. So obviously in a case like this, it would be up to the volition of the up to the Talmud Chacham to decide whether or not to take the oath and ultimately collect the money. So the Gemara goes back to I'm going to say these great cases. We'll say very important halacha. If you go ahead and you lend someone money in front of witnesses, repayment must take place in front of witnesses as well. So we'll say what the Gemara is suggesting over here, I should say what Rabbi Huda is suggesting of Rav, is that if I go out of my way to lend money in front of witnesses, that indicates that what? That I want every part of this transaction to take place in the presence of witnesses as well. So just like the lending took place in front of witnesses, I want the repayment to take place in front of witnesses as well. So the Gemara says, Ki amri se kami the Shmuel amar li. So when I said this one in front of the Shmuel, Shmuel said, Yochol lo marlo, paraticha bifnei ploni u ploni, v'holchu lam lemedina sayam. Shmuel said, well, here's the problem. That doesn't just understand, that doesn't prevent the borrower from essentially trying to manipulate the circumstances. The borrower could say, sure, I paid you back in front of witnesses, but what? I said, where are they? Where are they? They're overseas, right? They're overseas. So in other words, what the Gemara is suggesting over here is as follows. Rav seems to be saying that I could create a mechanism that essentially prevents anybody from denying claims. That if I as the lender go out of my way to lend money in front of witnesses, this requires ultimately again the borrower to repay in the presence of witnesses. All Shmuel comes along and says is that's fine, but that doesn't prevent the borrower from saying, sure, I paid you back in front of witnesses. Are they? Overseas. So Tanan Manali Biadach Amar Loheim, but says I say to Reuven, you owe me $1,000. Reuven says, yes, I do. What happens? I come to him tomorrow and say, Reuven, time to pay me back. So what happens? So he says, Nasativ lacha. He says, I paid you back. I paid you back already. What's the halacha? Pater. We'll say the halacha ultimately is, Rashi says, Nasativ lacha pater, af mishvua. So remember, in this case of here, I will say he is pater because at the end of the day, again, I don't really have any counterclaim to him. Now, again, as we saw before in the name of Rav Nachman, he's going to have to take a shvua assess. He'll have to take a rabbinic shvua. But midaraisa, he's pater. Now, I will say in this case over here, since I'm claiming the debt in front of witnesses, is it not as if I lent them in front of witnesses as well? And yet, vekatani pater. And yet, I will say again. So remember, I'm claiming this debt in front of witnesses. So because I'm claiming it in front of witnesses, I will say this is on day number one. I'm claiming in front of witnesses. Reuven, you owe me money. It's taking place in front of Beis Din, in front of witnesses. So we'll say that is as if the transaction is happening in front of witnesses. As such, again, shouldn't the repayment have to? So we'll say what the Gemara is assuming, what the Gemara is trying to say over here is that like the claiming or the request for repayment of the loan is like the equivalent of the making of the loan. Since I'm requesting repayment in front of witnesses, what I'm essentially saying is repayment must take place in the presence of witnesses. And yet, what do we see over here? Katani Potter. Yet, what Rabbi say that when Reuven afterwards claims, I paid you back already, apparently, again, we take that claim, we say, okay, you paid back already, we say that he's Potter. To which the Gemara Samad Beis will say, Tiyufta Derav. Tiyufta Dravasi. So says this, Ravasi will say this would effectively be a refutation of the Shita Ravasi. Amalach Ravasi, Ana ki amri hecha de meikara osvei be'edim, de lo lididehem ane hacha ha hemni. Ravasi says, no. What I'm saying is, when the original loan took place in the presence of witnesses, when the original loan took place in the presence of Edim, that's where the lender is telling the borrower essentially what? No offense, but I don't trust you. Right? No offense, but I don't trust you. We'll say by the well, I'll tell you the interesting halacha in just a moment. So when the original loan takes place in the presence of witnesses, that's when the lender is saying, I'm lending you in the presence of witnesses, and I expect repayment back in the presence of witnesses. And if you claim that you repaid me and you can't produce witnesses, then at the end of the day, your claim is unequivocally false. But Rabbi saying, where the claim for repayment was made in front of a base, in front of witnesses, and then Reuven subsequently says, I paid you back but without witnesses, that's not considered to be in violation of the terms of the debt. The only time where witnesses are necessary is is ultimately, again, when the original loan was made in the presence of witnesses, then we say that repayment must be made in the presence of witnesses as well. But if witnesses were only introduced sometime later on in the process, then repayment need not be done in the presence of witnesses. Rav Yosef Masni Hachi. Rav Yosef had a different version. Rav Yudam Ravasi. So let's listen to this. In this version, I lend money to Reuven in the presence of witnesses. So even if I lend him money in the presence of witnesses, Rabbi say, he is not obligated to pay me back in the presence of witnesses. Vim Amar al tipar'eni ella be'edim. But Rabbi say, listen to this. If I make an explicit condition, and I say to Reuven, I will only accept repayment from you in the presence of witnesses, then what? Sarech lefaro be'edim. Then Einachinami, Reuven is obligated to pay back in front of witnesses. So we'll say, to hear the distinction between the two versions, in version number one, it was understood that if I lent money in the presence of witnesses, there is an understood condition, there is an implicit t'nai, that repayment must take place in the presence of witnesses as well. In version number two, the t'nai is only binding Rabbi say if what? If it's explicit. It is only if I explicitly say, Reuven, I am lending you money in the presence of witnesses, right? And therefore, again, I do not, or I should say differently, I say them explicitly, I only want you to repay me in the presence of witnesses, that ultimately, again, that becomes a binding condition. So we'll say, when this was set over in front of Shmuel, Amarli, ultimately, Shmuel says, still, just understand this is not foolproof. Why? Because Reuven could always claim, sure, I paid you back in front of witnesses, but what? They went overseas. In other words, they were here, but they went overseas. To which Shmuel says, Tanan, Manali biyadecha. We learn Shmuel say, I say to Reuven, you owe me $1,000. Amar lo haim. Reuven says, yes, I owe you. Amar lo, al titneu li ele b'fnei edim. I say to Reuven, I only want you to pay me back in front of witnesses. L'machar amar lo, tnehu li. So next day I come to Reuven and say, Reuven, pay me back. So what does he say to me? Nasativ l'cha. I said, I paid you back. Chayiv. So what's the halacha is chayiv? Why? Ultimately, why? Because he has to pay me back in front of witnesses. Tiyuf to the Shmuel. Rabbi said this seems to refute Shmuel, because remember, what does Shmuel say? Shmuel says, Rabbi said that he could always claim he paid me back in front of witnesses, but they went to Medina Sayam. Amar l'cha Shmuel Tanahi. Shmuel says, Rabbi said ultimately this is a machlokes tanoim. This sanya, because we learned Beidim he'll be sicha, Beidim parli. So we'll say, if ultimately I say to Reuven, I lent you money in front of witnesses, you have to pay me back in front of witnesses. O yitain o yavi raya shnasra. We'll say either he has to pay, either Reuven has to pay, the bar has to pay, or he has to bring a proof that he prayed in front of witnesses. Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseira Omer, Yochel Lomer lo praticha b'fnei ploni u'ploni. V'achlam dina sayam. No, we could claim, I paid you in front of ploni u'ploni, but what, they went overseas? Parich Rav Acha. Mimai di b'shas hava koi. How do they were talking about at the time of the loan? Dilma b'shas tvia koi. Maybe this claim I will say for witnesses is coming at the time of the claim. And this is what the lender says. Lav be'edim hil b'sicha. Did I not lend you in front of witnesses? Be'edim hayalach ala parani. You should have paid me back in front of witnesses as well. Aval b'shas halva. But I will say, if at the end of the day the t'nai was made at the time that the money was given, that it has to be paid back in front of witnesses, then what? Divrei kol chayiv. Then I will say, ultimately, again, unless of course the borrower could produce the witnesses that he paid back, he certainly will be chayiv ultimately again to pay the lender. Amar Apai B'Shnei Rava Hilchasa. Rava say, what is the halacha? Hamav v'schavera be'idim tzarich lefara be'idim. Rava say, if you lend someone money in front of witnesses, you have to pay them back in front of witnesses. So I'll say, what's the halacha? Okay, so we'll say, Rapapa, the name of Rava, says that you have to go ahead and pay back in front, if you lent money in front of witnesses, right? You have to pay back in front of witnesses. And then Rapapa, also the name of Rava, that Amal Veschaver Be'edim, Eitzach V'Ra Be'edim, V'im Amra Al Tifra'ini Ela Be'edim, We'll say, but however, if an explicit Tanai was made, explicit Tanai says that I lent you money with witnesses, you must pay me back with witnesses, then but we'll say if at the end of the day, Reuven claims I paid you back in front of so and so and so and so, and they went overseas. Ultimately, again, he is Naaman. I will say, how do we pass in halacha l'maisa? We pass like this: that just because you lend someone money in front of witnesses does not automatically obligate the borrower to pay back in front of witnesses. Rather, we adopt the second version of this discussion, which is that the only time repayment in front of witnesses becomes a binding obligation is if an explicit condition is made. So if at the end of the day I lend money to her and say, Reuven, right, I hereby am lending you money on this condition, or with the explicit understanding that you will pay me back in front of witnesses, that becomes a binding obligation upon Reuven. Now again, could Reuven still technically say, I paid you back, ultimately again, and the witnesses went overseas? He could make that claim, but he would have to ultimately bolster and prove that claim. Obviously, you should know, Shulchan Aruch paskins, that you are not, that if you lend money to someone, not in the presence of witnesses, you, the lender, are in violation of Lifnei Iver Lo Sitein Michshol. You are in violation of placing. So why was I? Because if you lend money without witnesses, ultimately, again, it's too easy to deny that claim, right? So okay, if there's a signed star, then the Shulchan Aruch says a little bit less, right? But ultimately, again, he says the Shulchan Aruch is very machmir. Kitzer talks about this even in greater depth. This idea being that one is supposed to really lend money, ultimately, again, in front of witnesses, in order that ultimately, again, there should be no. Now, again, if there's a signed star between the parties, then the star essentially acts as eidos as well. The point that Allah is really trying to make Rabbi say is that what is that again, and unfortunately, we see this all the time. That even when things start out between friends, money has an interesting way of just causing different people to act in different ways. So therefore, if you're going to lend money, again, sometimes people lend money and they're lending it, but it's really tzedakah, so they don't care if they get it back or not, fine. But if a person, mamish, is lending money, b'taras halva, mamish, it's a loan, so one should make sure to structure it in a legally enforceable way, whether that's with eidos or whether that's ultimately, again, with a shtar, because otherwise the case just says you're setting up the borrower to make it too easy to deny the claim. Okay, the Gemara goes weiter. Says the Gemara, we'll say, Hahu Damale, so we'll say the Gemara just gives a mnemonic, skip down, third wide line. Hu Damale the Chavre. Let's listen to this. A person says to his friend, Ki paratin parinli ba'ape Reuven Mishim. What says this? I lend, we'll call him the borrower money. We'll just call him borrower for the purposes of this case. So I lend borrower money, and I say to him, listen, when you pay me back, I want you to only pay me back in the presence of Reuven and Shimon. Right? Pay me back in the presence of Reuven and Shimon, or the Edom, pay me back in front of Reuven and Shimon. Azul probably ba'ape trei ma'alma, he paid me back in front of Shimon and Levi, right? Two other guys. So we'll say, what's the halacha? Amar Abaye ba'ape be'trei Amarle ba'ape be'trei parele. So I'll say ultimately again, Abaye says it's fine. When I said pay me back in front of Reuven and Shimon, I will say, did I mean Reuven and Shimon? Did I mean Reuven and Shimon? No. What did I mean? Two people. So the fact that he paid me back in front of Levi and Yehuda doesn't make a difference to me. I meant paying back in front of two people. He paid back in front of two people. Amarle Rava says no. Says no, it's not true. When I specify two people, I say Reuven and Shimon both say, then who do I want repayment made in front of? I wanted Reuven and Shimon. Why? Because they both say it's too easy otherwise for him to deny certain liability. Therefore, again, I want him to dafka paying back in front of Reuven and Shimon. So there was a person who said to his friend, Ki parata li parinli ba'ape betre. When Reuven, I'm lending you money. When you go and you pay me back, I want you to pay me back in front of these two people. The Tanu Hilchasa. I should say these two people. I want you to pay me back in front of two people who teach Mishnayos. In other words, that I wanted you to repay me in front of Talmidei Chachamim. Teach Mishnayos. Okay. Azul pare bein delay le delay. So I say, so watch this case. So I go to Reuven. I say, Reuven, listen, here's the $1,000. When you pay me back, I want you to pay me back in front of Talmidei Chachamim, people who can teach Mishnah. So what happens? He goes ahead and he pays me back. But I will say, Reuven pays me back just between me and him, no witnesses. Now I will say, now what happens? Isnisu hanach zuze. I will say, so what happens? He gave me back the money, and the money got lost. Let's say something happened, some mishap occurred, and ultimately the money got lost. So the borrower and lender come before Rav Nachman. Amar lei. So what happens? The lender says, in kabule kabla sinhu minach. derech pikadon. So we'll say, watch this. So the lender says, yes, I did get back my money from you, but the truth is, it wasn't as repayment of the debt. Why? Because I made an explicit condition that what Rabbi say. Repayment of the debt could only occur where or when? In front of two Talmidei Chacham who know how to teach Mishnah. So it's true, I got the money back from you, but I got the money back from you as a pikadon. I agreed to watch it on your behalf. V'amina lehavi gabai pikadon ad misramu beit trade the tanu hilchasa umekayim, and I figured I'd hold it on your behalf until when? Until we found ourselves in the presence of two Talmidei Chachamim who could then act as the witnesses for the repayment, and then, only then, I would accept it as repayment. But now Nebuch got lost through not my own fault, and therefore again you're chayv to repay me. Amralei, so we'll say, so they responded back to the lender. Kevan dekamo this devadai shaklas sinhu minan binei. Since you are admitting that you received the money, therefore piraon ma'al yahavi. It is considered to be a bona fide act of repayment. Okay, and amrit likeyomei tanai. And if you're worried about the fulfillment of the tanai, zil ayasinhu deha'anav v'rav sheishes tetanei nehilchasa v'sifra v'sifri v'tosefta v'kulei tamuda. And again, if you need witnesses who are proficient in teaching Mishnah, Rav Nachman says, bless you, just come before me and Rav Sheishes. We both know a little bit of Torah. We're happy to act as your witnesses. So both said, bottom line for that case, what they were telling the lender is, listen, so I understand you made a condition that repayment should only take place in front of the Talmidei Chachamim. So both says, listen to this. Therefore, when the borrower comes along and says, I'd like to repay you, you have every right to what? You have every right to what? To say, no, I'm only sitting in front of two Talmidei Chachamim. However, once you accept that money, Rabbi say, then what? Then what? That is repayment. The fact that it didn't take place in what it didn't conform with your Tanai, that was a decision you made to accept that money in non-conformance of the condition that you made. But once you accepted that money, then by definition that's been repaid. So what happens? I say to my friend, give me the $100 that I lent to you. So he says, what $100? What are you talking about? Let's listen to this. So then what happens? He brings witnesses, and I'm supposed to listen to this. What do the witnesses say? So remember, I say, Reuven, you owe me $1,000. Reuven says, I owe you nothing. No, not even that I paid you back. I owe you, I never borrowed money from you. I bring witnesses. What are Reuven's been witnesses. What do the witnesses say? The witnesses say, Reuven borrowed money, but he paid him back. So now we've got a real problem. So remember again, Reuven says, I never borrowed money from you. The witnesses, now we'll say, here's the chap. The witnesses say, yes, you did, but you paid it back. So we'll say, so the witnesses, again, don't agree with Reuven, they don't agree with me. I'm claiming, I lent you money, I didn't get paid back. The witnesses says, yes, Silber, you got paid back. Reuven says, I never borrowed money. The witnesses says, yes, you did, but you paid back. So we'll say, what's the halach? Amar Abaye, ma'in ovid, inu amar no osvei, inu amar pare. We'll say, what are we going to do? Because the same witness is ultimately again who says that Reuven borrowed, are also the same ones who says that he paid back. Rava Amar, Rava says in a case like this, Kolo Omer lo levisi, Kamer la parati dami. We'll say any case where you say that you did not, any case where you did say that you didn't borrow, saying I didn't borrow, we'll say is the equivalent of saying what? I didn't pay. And therefore, we'll say, interestingly enough, what it sounds like in this case over here is we'll splice the Eidos a little bit. That the Eidim are enough to say that what? The Eidim testify to the fact that a loan took place. Once Reuven, bless you, once Reuven is saying I didn't pay back, once Reuven is saying I didn't borrow, that's the equivalent to Lachali of saying of what? As what? I didn't pay. Therefore, I will say, if we put this all together, what we have is now witnesses that place Reuven at the scene of the loan, right? Therefore, we know Reuven borrowed money, and the fact that Reuven himself says, I never borrowed is the equivalent of saying, I never paid, and therefore, Allah will be obligated to repay back the lender. Right, so we'll stop here for today. We'll pick up more with that case and other cases tomorrow. Hashem.